I'm excited to share with you our organization's new name. It was Silent Blessings. It is now Deaf Kids Connect. After 27 years as Silent Blessings, we believe the new name will better reflect our mission and our values. Let me explain. American Sign Language and English are two official languages, but unique in their linguistic structures. When I started as executive director in 2020, I found myself struggling with how to sign Silent Blessings and represent who we are. Word for word, the American Sign Language translation of the organization named Silent Blessings looks like this. Does it capture the vision of this organization? No. Signed, it looks like, be quiet, because the signs look the same. Is that what we mean? Be quiet? No, it was never our intention. Let me give you some history. The founder, Marshall Lawrence, his sign name is ML, and his wife, Terry, both had education in communications and child development. Marshall was a singer, songwriter, radio broadcaster, and music evangelist. Terry was a college professor. When they learned that their daughter, Rachel, was deaf, their world changed. They didn't know how they would tell their daughter about Jesus. They searched for Christian children's resources, specifically designed to teach deaf children about Jesus and American Sign Language, and found none. They knew if they were having trouble finding such resources, so were tens of thousands of other Christian parents. They founded Silent Blessings Deaf Ministries on January 13th, 1996, to create Christian video resources in American Sign Language, a foundational start in teaching to empower deaf children to become leaders and do His work. Marshall experienced the rich blessings of dear, close deaf friends, deaf mentors, conversing in American Sign Language, and living within deaf culture. He saw God pouring blessings upon him through his deaf daughter, Rachel. He believed that his daughter should be confident and comfortable with who she is as a deaf child. He was inspired to name this nonprofit Silent Blessings. Why Silent Blessings? One clip of the Finger Food Cafe movie is a song called Silent Blessings. He wrote that song for his daughter to let her know that he wouldn't change anything about her. All that God created in her, including her deafness, is perfect. In English, the song is beautiful and a perfect fit. In ASL, not so much. For 2.5 years, I have struggled with representing Silent Blessings. There are two aspects in particular. One, the complex linguistic structure of American Sign Language, and two, the misconceptions of deaf being. The heartbeat of my vision for this organization is to portray dignity, value, and immeasurable worth of God's design in deaf children. I asked my close deaf friends to share ideas on how to sign Silent Blessings. It didn't feel right with them. Not in their hands or in their hearts. Let me describe how I pictured myself and deaf children with the word-by-word translation of Silent Blessings. It implies that deaf people are less than human, a negative connotation, dumb. You can't hear? Oh, Lord have mercy, you poor thing. Instead of, you're equal, become a leader, go do as God called you. It felt limiting, patronizing. You see, these two languages clashed in meaning, creating a barrier to a right, God-given perspective. We want to show God's perspective harmoniously in ASL and English. Deaf children are fearfully and wonderfully made. That's the truth. God created over 400 sign languages in this universe. His one and only Great Commission is to go to different tribes, nations, languages, and peoples to declare Jesus. We should be in awestruck wonder of our Master, our Savior, and share God's glory through His works. God created the integrity of the deaf being and American Sign Language and over 400 sign languages around the world. We should be in awe, but we're not. That's not all. I've developed relationships with deaf leaders from 2 different backgrounds. Deaf individuals having grown up with deaf role models and ASL who are comfortable and confident and have a deaf identity. The other individuals grew up without ASL and deaf role models, feeling alone, struggling with their identity as deaf people. Both types of deaf leaders shared their perspectives with me and how they felt about the word silent. One group expressed how silent doesn't define who they are. They are human beings who live within visual, linguistic, and cultural groups. Silent doesn't reflect who they are. Also, they shared that they went to hearing churches growing up. Believers would look at them and see them as pitiful, a poor deaf person who needs a miraculous healing. Church members would surround deaf individuals and their families and pray for that miraculous healing that they could be hearing. After the prayer, when they remained deaf, they and their families were labeled as not having enough faith and cast out of church. They wondered, who am I? The other group grew up internalizing the belief that they weren't good enough. Being the only deaf person surrounded by talkers, no signing, feeling isolated. They grew up with no deaf identity and feeling negatively about themselves, unable to connect to God. That was until they went out into the world and met others like themselves and learned that there are 70 million deaf people on earth. It rocked their world when they saw the word silent in ASL and English. It triggered memories of feeling alone and unable to connect to God. The word silent was an old, patronizing label that didn't fit. Now they see that God designed them Himself as His image bearers. They decided to be rid of the false ideas and opinions of others and internalize His truth. They rejected the negativity using their own language and a positive deaf identity. The word silent touches deaf people of different upbringings in the same way. Nauseating. We must change the name. I talked with the board of directors and Marshall Lawrence about this. They gave me their full support, especially Marshall. He said, "I know God has placed you here. I can't tell you enough. I know you are the exact right person for this ministry, and I believe that you are God's choice. You are the driver of this organization. Go ahead and decide." So I said, okay. As our next step, we invited parents of deaf and hard of hearing children and the deaf community to brainstorm ideas for new names. We compiled the list of suggestions, and our team brainstormed, prayed, debated the long list down to 4. We sent out a survey to allow others to vote, and the name selected by the majority was Deaf Kids Connect. We then met with the board of directors and carefully considered the survey results. We prayerfully agreed that the new name Deaf Kids Connect, declares that we are here for deaf and hard of hearing kids. It shows ours and God's desire for deaf and hard of hearing kids to connect to their families, their communities, their peers, themselves, and most importantly, to Jesus. We are Silent Blessings Deaf Ministries, doing business as Deaf Kids Connect. Our vision is to bring connection to all deaf and hard of hearing children with the love of Jesus. Come join us to accelerate the inclusion of deaf and hard of hearing children in knowing Jesus.